Adam Schiff is here. He represents California's 28th Congressional District. He is the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee and a leading voice on national security. He's also a member of the Select Committee on Benghazi. The inquiry continues to face controversy over its investigation into the 2012 terrorist attack. I am pleased to have Congressman Adam Schiff at this table for the first time. He's been on the show, but not at the table. So welcome.
Thank you very much. Great to be with you.
Tell me, in terms of ISIS, what did the Charlie Hebdo, then Paris, and then Brussels say to you about ISIS strategy? And what do you know that we should know?
What it said to me was that the problem that we have long worried about, that is foreign fighters, people that left Europe, that went to Syria, Iraq, and came back, that problem is now very manifest. That you have this enormous number of people from France, from Belgium, more per capita from Belgium than anywhere else, that have come back. They have been trained in warfare. They have been further radicalized. They're getting help from fellow Europeans that maybe never went to join the fight, but are serving as a logistical hub. And unfortunately, there is no end in sight. There's still very poor communication between European countries. There's a lot of stovepiping within European countries in terms of intelligence. In many respects, these countries are much like the United States pre-9/11.
But these primarily are people who have passports from Western countries or from the United States.
Yes. Now, luckily, we haven't had that many from the United States. We certainly have had some. But the challenge in terms of the foreign fighters is far greater for Europe. The challenge for us, the most immediate threat.
Geography.
Yes, exactly. We benefit tremendously from those oceans. The more immediate threat for us, frankly, are the homegrown radicals, those that are inspired by the ISIS propaganda. That is incredibly pernicious. We have not done much in combating that. I think probably because the government is a very poor message. We're not very good at social media. And now I think we're using a very different strategy, a more sensible one of empowering messengers within the Muslim world to speak to this.
How would you assess the Brussels effort, the Belgium effort, and the French effort to stop this kind of attack?
Well, they begin with a far greater problem than we have and far less resources devoted to the task. So they have been behind from the beginning. Now, they're ramping up their personnel, but nonetheless, it takes time. These intelligence and law enforcement professionals can't be trained overnight, so they are playing against the clock. Unfortunately, it shows in the tragic attacks that we have seen.
But they're also going through a kind of a reassessment themselves now, saying, what do we do and what do we do wrong? And you have the incident of Turkey having one of those that were killed in the Brussels attack, having been cited by the Turkish government and that kind of thing. So they're having to go through an agonizing reassessment.
The fundamental question I think Europeans have to answer is, are they going to allow information to travel faster than people? Because if they're going to continue to have this free travel within Europe, then they're going to have to make sure that their intelligence travels even faster. Right now, it doesn't, and that poses a very
people
real
traveling
threat.
faster than information?
Yes, absolutely.
The encryption battle. All of a sudden, we had Apple versus the FBI, and then the FBI somehow, and I can't wait to learn how, found somebody that could open that San Bernardino's terrorist phone. What does that do to the encryption debate?
Not very much. It takes it off the front burner in terms of the case involving the San Bernardino shooters.
Right.
But the issue hasn't gone away at all, and indeed it has become all the more acute in light of WhatsApp's announcement that they are encrypting everything end-to-end. And this is really a spectacular change. I was a prosecutor for 6 years, and I can't imagine as a former prosecutor a world in which essentially a wiretap is useless. And as people migrate from landlines to cell phones, increasingly a wiretap is going to be useless.
Does that give you more sensitivity and understanding and perhaps agreement with the FBI's argument than if you hadn't been a prosecutor?
It certainly gives me an appreciation for it. That change in which search warrants will have far less utility because you won't be able to open the thing with the most information, that is a phone. The fact that telecommunications won't be accessible through wiretap, those things are enormous changes. But the other really enormous change and this is why this issue is so challenging, is for people in Iran and people in Russia and people in China and people increasingly in Turkey who are worried about their own government listening in on what they have to say, legitimate conversations. This is equally enormous and consequential.
This is the argument that Apple makes.
And it's a very legitimate argument.
And they make the argument for China specifically because they have so many iPhones sold in China.
You know, the real crux of the matter for Apple may come if China poses the same question that the FBI has. If China says, we need you to unlock these devices if you want to do business here, if you want to make your phones here.
So what do you think would happen if they do make that demand?
I don't know. I do suspect, and I think the Congress is nowhere near a consensus on this issue, but I do suspect that the best path, if we can find our way to it, is to have government, privacy stakeholders, technology sit at a table like this and figure out what's within the realm of doable. I've asked the National Academy of Sciences to do an encryption report. We asked them back in the fall. That, I think, will help guide us.
Is there a question of either we go through the courts or we go to the Congress? And is there a developing consensus that it ought to be the Congress?
I think there is a growing consensus it ought to be the Congress. That doesn't mean that the Bureau won't, in particular cases, go to the court if they need to, while Congress works its will, or more likely doesn't work any will. You know, I think Apple is right. The issues are too big, too policy-oriented, the weighing of privacy and security to be resolved in litigation. At the same time, I think Apple also understands we're such a dysfunctional body that if you leave it to Congress, we're not likely to do anything. And the status quo really is in the technology sector's favor. But ultimately, we do have to balance these questions. They're enormously far-reaching. I don't think we're equipped to do it at the present. I think we need a lot more information. And you know, one of the things I would like to know, and from independent experts, is this whole technological question of whether you could safely have a door. If technology companies can guard their source code, if they can guard their electronic signature, why can't they retain a means when they update a phone, for example, with a court order? To give access. I don't know the technological answer. I wouldn't want to rely completely on the tech sector that has an economic interest in it.
Certainly their argument is if you force us to do it, all of a sudden it'll be opening up phones all over the world.
Yeah, that is the argument.
That's their argument. And you believe there's a different way to find...
Actually, I don't know.
But I assume you're having conversations with these Apple officials and others.
Yes,
in the tech community. And you live in California.
Absolutely. Well, look, we want them to be successful. We need them to be successful. And there's every reason, not only from an economic point of view, but from a national security point of view, for us to want our own industries to be successful. Because even if we are locked out of encrypted information, the fact that companies are here, devices are made here, is advantageous just across the spectrum. And this is part of the challenge. It's a global technology. Even if we were to insist on doors here, that doesn't mean that others overseas will insist on doors there, nor is it necessarily desirable that they should.
The Benghazi Committee, where does it stand?
That's a good question, and I wish as a member of the committee I could give you the answer. The reality is we don't know in the minority. I'm not sure the majority knows either, and this has been the problem all along. It's been a committee in search of a purpose. We have uncovered really nothing that alters the core conclusions of the 8 other investigations that went before. But
wait, you say that slower. You have not altered any conclusion of any other previous commission or investigation?
We haven't found new facts that alter the conclusions that we had reached before we began this committee. Because
is there an operative idea on the part of the Republicans in the committee that Secretary Clinton lied?
Well, look, I think the operative idea on the GOP side of this committee is Clinton must be stopped from getting the White House. But that's their political motivation. That's been the underpinning of the committee.
Does the Benghazi whole business have any resonance with the wider political community in America?
Look, I think that the GOP considers the Benghazi issue a valuable one politically because it plays into a narrative they would like to tell about the secretary.
Which is? She's not trustworthy. Yeah.
That they don't trust her, that she operates pools. This is the narrative they want to sell the American people. I don't buy it.
What is your theory of the case? I mean, you know, in terms of what she did at the time.
Well, look, she's acknowledged it was a mistake for her to use her own server.
Right.
She should have used the State Department email system, as insecure as that ultimately proved to be.
That's not the issue in the Benghazi Commission, is it?
No. Well, mostly no.
But maybe so?
It has
maybe some things happened on that server that are relevant?
It is certainly, well, only to the extent that the mission of the majority of the Benghazi Committee has been uncover anything damaging to the Secretary.
Another idea which has some conversation in the political community is that whether Secretary Clinton might be indicted because of the server. You're in the Congress, you know the FBI. Where is that?
I don't think there's any credibility to that.
Right.
If you look at the facts, the Secretary largely receiving emails, none marked classified, most of which were classified after the fact, not even classified at the time she received them. And those that may have been classified at the time were not marked as such. They weren't shared with outside third parties.
But there's this...
None of the criteria you would see in a criminal case.
Should lead to an indictment of the Secretary in terms of just simply having a personal server in her house.
Nothing that I can see.
You supported the Iran nuclear deal with some caveats, fair to say.
Yes.
What were your reservations about it?
My chief reservation was that at the end of the period of the deal, in about 8 or 10 years, some of it goes on longer, that Iran would have a very fast and efficient industrial nuclear capability for peaceful purposes. But nonetheless, what I had hoped would be a token nuclear program at all to save face instead is a very substantial program. So once that happens, there are two breakout times. There's a breakout time, how long does it take you to create fissile material? And there's a breakout time, how long does it create the mechanism of the bomb? Mm-hmm. By the time we get to the end of 10 years, the breakout time in terms of fissionable material will be close to zero. Right. They will be able to produce the material they need very quickly. That was a bitter pill to swallow. Frankly, only the fact that you would go from a breakout period when we started the negotiation of a matter of weeks to more than a year for a decade, with this very rigorous process of inspections and the ability to snap back sanctions outweighed that bitter pill that we had to swallow with this agreement.
Thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Great to be with you.
We can do it again.
I look forward to it.
We'll be right back. Stay with us. The great Ken Burns is here. For 35 years, he has brought the documentary tradition to the forefront. His